Jujutsu Kaisen sequel just broke the scale. Sukuna, Gojo, Yuji in the face of these Sumerians might actually just be fodder. With the introduction of Maru Ores, Rororuka energy, and their third eye, we have entered a new era of power. These planetary beings shifted the understanding of cursed energy and techniques altogether. And just when we thought Dabura was the final boss, Gege throws us another one. We continue the flashback in exploring the tragic past of the Sumerians and what led them to seek refuge on Earth. Through the eyes of Cross, we start to understand his reasons behind the lack of trust in other races and his fear in the reliance on hope for coexistence. The people of his planet had evolved into different tribes, each having their own customs, religion, and way of life. For instance, Cross and those with just a third eye are Lumalians, or likely pronounced Sumerians, who held the Kalian beast in their planet to be sacred within their religion, whilst those with horns, i.e. Dabura, are from the Deskunte clan, who, along with the other tribes, saw the Kalians as dangerous, wanting them to be all destroyed as they would attack and eat anyone other than the Sumerians, or so they claimed. Even so, the Sumerian people protested, which led to the persecution and forceful push to barren lands by the stronger Deskunte clan. They then went through a sanction, barring trade from others. This isolationist policy had led to many deaths, including the daughter of Jabaloma.
Who?
Come on, this loopy-eared, Tengen-looking guy. However, one Sumerian still believed coexistence and peace could be achieved. This man was none other than Duda. And boy, is he strong! Like, look at him obliterate this boulder! Both Cross and Maru, after losing their parents, fell under his tutelage, where together they spent years to build a canal in their land, so that it can make trading by ship easier, and even benefit the Deskuntes, in turn improving their relationship. And of course, it does! With everything going as Doura had planned, the Deskunte did reach out to benefit from this canal and even wanted to build a port halfway through, willing to cover all cost. Trade between the two races had finally resumed. But this is Jujutsu Kaisen, and Gege ain't writing a Disney story, hence Murphy law comes into place. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. One day, the daughter of a Deskunte chieftain is mauled to death by none other than a Kalian. Remember when Maru first encountered a curse on Earth? He called it a Kalian, instantly linking these ancient beasts from this planet of Sumeria to Earth's concept of curse energy. In fact, we learned that on this planet, every Sumerian, no matter their tribe, is born with a third eye, a sacred organ that channels their life force known as Rororuka or Roruka. Like, how do you pronounce this shit, bro? No, but basically, this is their version of cursed energy, or basically like it, because back in chapter 1, Cross confirmed the similarities between the power the human possess and theirs. But here's the key difference. For humans, cursed energy is created from negative emotions, hatred, grief, fear, jealousy, all the ugly parts of human condition. That's why curses exist at all. Every time a human feels something negative, that energy leaks out into the world and manifests as monsters. A Jujutsu sorcerer, on the other hand, learns to control this energy and contain it within themselves, forcing it to circulate through the entire mind, body, and soul. Instead of letting it spill out. That's why if every human became a sorcerer, curses would completely disappear. There would be no more negative energy leaking into the world. Actually, if you just remove all humans, that could also have the same effect, which is what Geto had in mind. Now, there is a common idea that cursed energy starts from the gut because that's where tension builds up when emotion spikes, hence the term gut feeling. But Toro taught Yuji that this belief limits the flow. Cursed energy should be imagined to flow through one's entire existence as one continuous current. Once Yuji understood that, his control skyrocketed. That's what allowed him to unleash Black Flash, a phenomena where cursed energy is applied within 0.00001 second of a physical hit, bending space itself. No sorcerer can trigger it at will, but those who do gain an advanced understanding of cursed energy has a higher chance. Yuji, who was able to see the contours of the souls, was able to synergize everything more seamlessly. But the Sumerians operate on a complete different level. Their energy, Rororuka, isn't born from negativity. It's life energy itself, drawn from vitality and emotion. emotion. Instead of leaking from the body, it originates from the third eye, a direct link between consciousness and creation. Sumerians cry from this eye only once at birth and when they die. Their third eye tears mark the beginning and end of life's flow, a spiritual echo of creation and loss. Hence why a tear produced by this third eye is incredibly dangerous for their brain and may cause death. This is very comparable to Gojo's red and reverse cursed energy, which too can be dangerous for the brain if overused. Remember, for the sorcerers, negative energy is converted to positive energy in, you guessed it, the brain. Another evidence the power produced by the Sumerians is similar to positive energy is Maru's technique of distorting the natural laws of order itself. This is not too different from positive energy healing a new limb or literally fashioning a new heart from scratch. Literally, breaking the laws of life itself. What's even crazier is that every Sumerian has this third eye and power. So off the bat, the weakest person in this planet is comparable to a Jujutsu sorcerer. And don't forget, the majority of sorcerers live in Japan. The entire world on Earth are basic humans like us. So just imagine how cooked they are. The power gap between the humans and aliens is so freaking huge. Gojo even had to go through a life and death situation to master positive energy, and this guy was considered the strongest human alive. However, with all that said, even though shedding tears from the third eye can lead to brain damage and death due to their reverence for the Kalians, the Lumalians wept when they had been wiped out and killed, showcasing their deep connection to these beasts. This level of inherent empathy they hold might contribute to their nature, as seen with Maru, Jabola and Daru. They all seemed more grounded even during this injustice they had suffered. Which brings me to believe that unlike curses who are made from negative energy, the Kalians are likely formed from positive life energy. Gege has taken inspiration from various religions and mythologies in the case of the Sumerians. The Kalians that the Lunar people find sacred literally translate from Sanskrit into blessing, well-being, or divine prosperity. This positivity is embodied into the Kalian beast, who are likely the manifestation of this form of energy. However, with the death of the Deskunte's chief's daughter, the peace and everything Doura was working to build, all that sweet unity between tribes, the canal project, the dream of connection, it's all gone. The Deskuntans are pissed. They blame the Sumerians, saying it's their fault that the Kalian attacked, and now they are demanding compensation. Which sounds not too bad, right? Until you realize they want 90% of the Sumerians' land, including the canal they just finished building. That's not compensation, that's colonization. It will literally leave thousands of Sumerians homeless overnight. But one of the elders speaks up saying, hold on, weren't all the Kalian beasts exterminated from Deskunte lands years ago? So yeah, something seems off. It smells like a setup. And even if one survived, a Kalian would never attack without being provoked by Sumerian, in which the Deskunte suggests they did. And just like that, boom, their entire civilization is blamed for something that makes zero sense. So the question becomes, why don't the Sumerians fight back? I mean, they are strong, right? Well, yeah, but the Deskuntans are on a completely different level. Moreover, Sumeria chooses the political leaders and chief based on whoever possesses real strength. That's why the Deskuntans were always on top of the hierarchy. If you're strong enough to survive, you're strong enough to rule. And whenever two tribes disagree, the law is simple. There's a duel. We're talking about a literal fight to the death. And if the Deskuntans want to wage war, continuing their crusade to annex the Sumerian lands, they need to win. But our guys aren't scared. They're like, bet we might actually have a chance to defend ourselves, because we have one man who can actually throw hands. The legend himself, Doura. This guy was winning duels before Maru and Cross were even born. He defeated the Deskunte war chief himself in the past, when every single odd was stacked against him. Bro wasn't just strong, he was built different. But when the Sumerians start celebrating, calling him the strongest man on the planet, Doura shakes his head and says, no, I'm not. Because he knows the truth. The real monsters of the Deskuntes never showed up to that old duel. The ones who didn't fight back then then are the ones coming now. And for the first time, he looks afraid. Cross questions if they can just, refuse the duel. But Duda says no. Refusing a fight against the Deskunte won't change anything. They would just consider it a loss and proceed to take everything. Worse, the Deskuntans become complete monsters when their opponents refuse the ultimate purpose of a warrior. To fight to the death. So Doura does the unthinkable. He accepts the duel, knowing full well he's not coming out of this alive. The same man who built a canal to connect nations now prepares to fight a battle that will destroy it all. Why is this guy more interesting than Yuta's grandkids already? But finally, the day of the duel arrived. The arena roars with excitement. The Deskuntans cheering, soldiers chanting, but the Sumerians, they're just silent, because the moment the Deskunte champion steps forward, their heart stops. It's Dabura. The audience reaction mirrors humanity's first sight of him in chapter 2. Pure fear. He isn't just a warrior, he's a calamity. A being so overwhelmingly strong that even Sukuna himself might have second thoughts. Alright, fine, I'm taking a piss and maybe I'm gassing him a bit too much. But he's strong. And here, Cross immediately realizes the truth. Duda might be powerful, but against this monster, he doesn't stand a chance. He pleads with him. Run, Duda, please. No one would blame you. But Duda just smiles. My guy was never leaving this arena alive, because the entire duel was a setup, a trap orchestrated by the Deskunte chief himself. As Dabura approaches, the two lock eyes, and instead of hostility, there's heartbreak. Duda greets him not as an enemy, but as an old friend, almost like a brother. That's when the truth hits him. Dabura doesn't even want this fight. His sister's being held hostage by the Deskunte chief. He's being forced to kill his own friend just to keep her alive. And that's when Duda clicks everything together, seeing through the entire lie, and makes his move. First, he silently asks Dabura for a favor. Then, in front of the entire arena, Duda begins tearing down the Deskunte's chief plans out loud. Word by word, he exposes their corruption. He shouts that his people's religion that separated them from the other tribes might have been a wall between them. However, the holy war that was raged against the Kalyans wasn't the true reason for the Deskunte's invasion and their exile. The Deskuntans don't care about divine retribution, they only care about power. Because everything was for the Maru Ores, a sacred mineral which stores Rororuka energy, and the Sumerians' lands are filled with it. This context makes the death of Maru and Cross's father and mother more tragic, because just before they died, their father was clutching onto this rock. He must have held it in such a high regard that he named one of his own child after it. And more than likely, these ores are linked back to the Kalyans, and this was the real reason for all of the carnage and war. Yep, you can't make this shit up. You all know what Gege was trying to refer from this, because this stuff is basically oil. And also think of it like when the US president in Jujutsu Kaisen found out about Gojo's existence. He didn't see a man, he saw a nuclear battery. That's exactly how the Deskuntans operate. Doura goes even further. He hints that the chief's daughter might have never even died at all, that her death was staged, or worse, a sacrifice by their own empire, blamed on the Kalyans to give them an excuse for war. Basically a false flag attack, which of course Gege once again is trying to hint at our own world affairs. Come on, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Come on, I can't be the only one, so I don't want to get demonetized. Doura pleads with the audience to see through the Deskuntans' lie, that recently their rise to power was due to the stolen ores. Doura explains that religion was meant to guide their lives, not twisted into a cultural weapon of war. The other tribes do not need to respect their religion, but rather respect their way of life, which is influenced by it. At the end of the day, everyone here is not so different. They are all living beings. So Doura once again asks for peace and friendship, begs the tribes to accept the Sumerians as neighbors. Regardless, it was for nothing, as one of the best characters in the sequel gets off-screened within a second. With one command from the chief, Dabura destroys Duda without even using his full power. This pisses the heck out of Maru, Maru, Cross literally had to pull the Garp and Sengoku moment here. However, Dabura explained that he held back because he didn't want to hurt his buddy's face. He's such a good guy, man. What could he have done? His sister is held hostage, so he had to kill his best friend, which I'm sure Doura was okay with. We then get a small hint about Dabura's backstory. Before the Sumerians were exiled, he and Doura grew up as warriors together. As a matter of fact, Doura was the only person who knew about Dabura's full power, as he didn't like showing off. That's why Doura knew from the start that he wasn't the strongest, and maybe even got lucky that Dabura wasn't in the previous duel, or he'd be dead before he even met the twins. But coming back to the chapter, we see the Sumerian holding Doura's funeral. Not only is his eyes tearing up, as stated before, his hands are in a similar position to what seems to be Kenjaku's domain expansion. If you guys forgot that his Taizo Henya or womb realm represented the Buddhist mandala of the two realms, which in this case I guess refers to life and death. Here, Cross reminisces about his time spent with Doura, who first coined the catchphrase to be neighbors. Is a companion who understands why things you treasure are important. With Doura's death, Cross concludes that being neighbors with the Deskuntens is impossible now, because Doura is what he and his brother had treasured above anything else. However, the Sumerians do not have the time to grieve. Doura lost the duel, and their lands are now to go to the Deskuntens by the next morning. The Sumerians have nowhere to go. Just then, Dabura arrives at their gathering with his sister. I guess now that he'd done the job, his sister was set free. But he reveals what Doura had whispered to him at the arena. Remember the stones that Doura told the twins not to touch? Well, they were actually Maru Ores. Doura was not only building the canal for transport purposes, he was mining from there as well. Since that area was Kalyan territory, no Deskunte would get close. So even after death, Doura had a plan of carrying the Sumerians. That's when Maru realizes that they can use these ores to rebuild their own civilization in another planet. That's right, it was Maru's idea all along. The whole thing about leaving the planet and finding a new race of people that would allow them to seek refuge and become peaceful neighbors with. Doura knew that after his death, the twins would carry out his legacy. However, these were no ordinary Maru ores, as Jabaloma realizes. It's something much more pure. Something so pure that it instantly elevated both Maru's and Cross's energy. Something that got them from using pickaxes and basic tools to a literal interstellar civilization in a matter of seconds. Getting in touch with Maru and Cross's Roruka transformed these rocks into the literal mothership. I'm guessing it reacted to Maru's imagination, and as they have power to bend reality itself, they were able to transform the rocks into something that would deliver their goals. Now I think this might be a stretch, but this form of energy and these pure rocks could be what Kenjaku was striving towards. He wanted a new form of curse energy altogether. He wanted to fast pace the evolution of Jujutsu sorcery, and I guess this might have been the result. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and if you enjoy peak fiction, then make sure to catch this video next.